What's up everyone, Ronix from Ronix Photography, and today's tutorial is about a complete skin retouching guide to frequency separation. So today's tutorial is about skin retouching in Photoshop, and this is like a complete guide, and I'm going to be showing you guys what frequency separation is, what it does, and the best ways to do your frequency separation. And we are also going to learn about global dodging and banning and the difference it brings or makes to your images. And we are also going to be learning about color grading of this portrait. So let's kick in and we start editing. And before I can go ahead, this image was taken by Wally Visuals and was part of his fifth photography retouching challenge. And yeah, he usually has retouching challenges on his Instagram account. So I'm going to put his Instagram link in the description so that you guys can check him out and you don't miss out and get these beautiful images to practice with your retouching, and you upgrade your retouching skills. And make sure you watch this tutorial to the end so that you can learn each and every basic of frequency separation. So I'm going to be taking you guys slowly so that you can, even a beginner can learn or understand the basics of frequency separation in Photoshop. So before we can start learning about frequency separation, what is frequency separation? Frequency separation is a retouching technique that divides the image into two, that is the color or the skin tones, and the texture, that is the high frequency. So some people prefer to call the texture layer the high frequency, and other people tend to call the color texture the low frequency. So initially that is what frequency separation does. And when you're doing frequency separation, first of all, to see if at all you have the results well, your frequency separation group shouldn't be different from this background of the image. So let me show you guys what I mean by this. So we're going to start by, first of all, duplicating the background layer by dragging and dropping here twice, or you can just click Ctrl J on the keyboard twice or Command J twice. So we are going to name this, like we had said, the first layer is the color, or some people prefer to call it low frequency, and the upper layer is texture, or some people prefer to call it the high frequency. So initially these are the two layers that create or form frequency separation. So turn off the texture layer and select the color layer right here, or your low frequency layer. And first of all, we are going to remove the texture from the color or the skin tone or the low frequency layer. So we are going to remove the skin texture, like the pimples or the skin pores, from this very layer by applying this wonderful effect. So come to filter, then come to blur, and come to Gaussian blur. So this is the initial image before we can apply our radius. So make sure you zoom out and look for an area that has so much texture. For example, right here on the forehead. So we are going to slide this until we can see less of the skin pores or the skin texture, but as well seeing the facial structures like the eyes and maybe the eyebrows and maybe the lips. So let's slide this, and you have to be careful while doing this, because this step also determines this amount of skin texture that you'll have to remain with after you have applied your frequency separation retouching. So let's drag this until we can see less of the skin texture, and I think 10 is fine because we can now see less of the skin texture, but we can still see the facial structures, like we can still identify the model's facial structures. So click OK, and now we're going to come to our texture layer or high frequency layer, and now click on the eye icon to bring it back or activate it. So you're going to come to image, and you're going to come to apply image. So when you come to apply image, initially your image is going to this is going to be like you're going to be having different results from this. So make sure, remember, we are going to subtract the texture. Now we're going to remove the texture from this very layer. Yeah, I hope I'm making sense. So we want to remain with only the texture on this very layer. So come and now select this layer right in the middle. Then come to the blending and select subtract, and make sure your scale is 2 and the offset 128, because we want to only remain with the texture and create uh, that 50% gray, because it contains most of the textures. And now make sure the opacity is at 100%, and now we are going to click OK. After that, come to your blending option and look for linear light. So when you click on linear light, you'll get your image back. So let's group these two layers so that I can show you guys what I was meaning by your frequency separation layer shouldn't be different from your background layer. There shouldn't be any slight difference. They should be similar or the same. So select the two layers and click Ctrl G or Command G on the keyboard. So let's name this frequency separation. Frequency separation. So let's turn this off. You can see on and off. There is no difference between the two layers. They are all the same. So this implies that African separation group, or we have successfully uh, separated the image into two. So click on this drop down icon and now get this. So first of all, we are going to use the mixer brush tool so that we can blend the skin tones while they are not transitioning really well. So let's click on the texture or high frequency layer, this layer that has our texture. So we're going to come right down here and we're going to create a black and white layer. So what this does is it shows us clearly where the skin tones are not transitioning really well. So let's modify this layer right here by darkening it. So click on this and now hold down and drag it towards the left hand side. And so right now you can see those areas that have imperfect transitions in the skin tones, and sometimes it can be as a result of makeup. Makeup may not be applied in those areas, so let's try to kind of blend in that makeup so that the skin tones can have smooth transitions. So click on your color all of frequency layer right here and come here and click on your right click and look for your mixer brush tool. So this is my mixer brush tool, and if at all you don't have it right here, make sure you come to under your brushes, right click and look for your mixer brush tool. So for the setting, we have to first of all set up this brush so that uh, whenever we are blending the skin tones right here, we can still retain the skin texture, so it can be non-destructive to our image. So come right here, click down here and make sure it is a clean brush, and make sure you select this little box. So make sure for the wetness, remember we want to retain the texture. Make sure you have a wetness below between 10 and 8. So we're going to be using a wetness of 10% because we want to retain the texture. And the reason for cleaning the brush here is because we want the brush to clean itself every after each and every stroke we make. It's like when you're painting and you have your brush. When you want to apply a different color, you have to first of all maybe dip your brush in maybe water or kerosene and stuff so it can get clean, and you apply a different stroke on another area using another color. So this is why we have to select this option. So make sure the wetness is at 10%, the load is at 75, the mix is at 90%, and the flow at 100%. So make sure sample all layers is not checked. Yeah, make sure it is not checked. So make sure there is no tick right here. So what we are going to do, we are going to start blending these areas that, and when you're mixing or blending these areas or the transitions, make sure you mix the highlights alone, the midtones alone, and the shadows alone. Make sure you don't drag from one area to another, because you're going to be distorting the shape or the original shape of our model. So make sure you blend the highlights alone, the midtones alone, and the shadows alone. So We are going to zoom in by clicking Ctrl plus on the keyboard so that we can have a more precise view of the image. So increase on the brush size by using the right bracket on the keyboard, or you can reduce it by using the left bracket on the keyboard. So let's blend these areas. Like you're seeing, blending these shadows alone. So we have a highlight here and I'm blending it alone. So initially, that is the importance of, first of all, using a mixer brush tool when you're going to do uh, your frequency separation, because it helps you get rid of the skin imperfections due to an inconsistent skin tone. So make sure you first of all use this mixer brush tool because it is really perfect. And make sure when you're mixing you don't mix an area for a long time because it is going to double the effect of your brush. So make sure. And now we are going to keep on checking on our progress by clicking on the black and white layer and turning it off. So click on this eye icon to see our progress before and see after, before after, before after. We have already blended this area well. So let's click on the eye icon to activate our black and white layer. Make sure you're on your color all of frequency layer, and now get your brush. Remember, we are mixing uh, the shadows alone, the midtones alone, and the highlights alone. Like I'm doing right now, we have a shadow right here, and I'm mixing that area alone. So we have some sort of midtones. I'm mixing them alone. So make sure you do this for all your images, and trust me, after this tutorial your photography retouching skills or your skin retouching skills are going to improve by a great mileage. So make sure you stick around and learn each and every step, because after this I'm going to share one important thing that uh, so many retouchers don't like sharing, their personal findings. So make sure you stick around, and you can get to know or learn about my finding, because I discovered this wonderful trick that kind of fine tunes the image. Yeah, when you're doing your retouching, and when you come to the nose area right now, make sure you blend. You can see we have some sort of shadows here, and I'm mixing them alone. Then I come here, I mix this area too alone, you can see. And now we come right here. So apparently what we are doing, we are trying to blend every single area that has uneven skin tones so that they can blend in together, and yeah, they merge in. And you can see for those areas that are between the highlights, or maybe the highlights and midtones, or highlights and shadows, just mix in between where they are transitioning so that you can have the best transitioning of the skin tones. So let's keep on checking on our progress, because I wouldn't want us to only be working on this layer. So turn this off, the black and white layer, so you can see before, after, before, after. You can see these areas right here have already been transitioned really well. And don't worry about the blemishes or pimples in this portrait, or you can even as well mix without this whole player. You can just mix without it, or you can use it. So if at all you want to have the most precise results, make sure you use it, because it is, yeah, a whole player. So you can see we had it blended here. So make sure you turn it on and off to on the areas that you're not sure of, so that you can blend them really well. So let's turn it on. You can see now when you turn it on, you can clearly see the areas that don't have the perfect skin tone. So let's blend these areas. You can see I intentionally skipped this highlight because I want to come back and blend it alone. So, and I also transition that border of that particular area. So let's also blend on the fingers of our model, And what I've noticed, most of the retouchers out there tend to forget retouching the neck and the fingers. So when you feel like the area is too dark and you can't notice where to do the mixing, increase on that effect, and make sure when you increase it, come back and click on this layer, and you can come back and continue blending. So I think we are done blending the skin tone. So let's turn this layer off. You can see before, after. You can see the difference we have made so far. Now, we're going to click on this layer right here, and we're going to delete it by clicking and holding down and dragging it to the trash icon, because its importance is now over. So come back to the low frequency layer, and now come right click here and get your lasso tool. This is the lasso tool. What we're going to do, we are going to start selecting the area of the skin, yeah, so that we can fine tune those areas we may have missed out when we are blending the skin tones together, so that we can have a more perfect and compact results of our skin tones and skin texture. That is the reason that's why we are going to do this important step. And here I'm going to be sharing with you guys the trick I found out, or my finding, for the best skin texture for our skin retouching using frequency separation. So let me zoom in, because right now you have to zoom in to get a more clear and precise selection for the skin texture. So let's make a selection. Don't worry if at all I'm selecting those areas with little hair. And before I can do this, make sure your feathering is between 15 and 18 pixels. And for this image, let me use 18 pixels, because we want a fine or a more fine selection for when you're selecting the skin. So let's come back and make a selection. So if at all you're not using maybe a Wacom tablet, just left click, hold down the left button on your mouse or touchpad, and drag until you make a selection. So right now, come back to filter, blur, and come to Gaussian blur. So for this step, remember, when we are doing African separation, this is the very first radius we used. So when you're retouching your images, the very first radius you used, uh, let's first of all zoom or slide this until we can see the area with the most perfect skin texture for our image. So let's slide this before I can share this important trick, until we can see. You can see, I think the skin texture is fine at around 33 pixels. So I'm going to reset this to 10. So here is my finding. When you multiply this radius we use when we are doing African separation, when you multiply it by 3, and you add 2 to the value you get, it is the same radius you have to fill in right here. So for here we used 10 pixels for the radius when we are doing African separation. So we are going to multiply 10 times 3, you get 30, then you add 3 to the value you get. So 10 times 3 is 30, then 30 plus 3, you get 33. So let's feed in 33, and you can see it is almost the same as sliding this manually. So you have to put in a little math to get the most perfect skin texture. So click OK. So we're going to be applying this effect on the rest of the image by selecting and right clicking and applying the effect. And when you're selecting, make sure you select according to the shape of the area you want to apply. And like we did for skin tones, right click and apply. Make sure you select the highlight salon, the midtones, and the shadows. But on top of that, make sure you select according to the shape of the area you're trying to apply the effect onto. So you can see intentionally avoiding this highlight. I'm going to show you why I'm avoiding it. So right click and apply. So if at all you feel the effect is too much for that particular area, you can also reduce on that effect by clicking Shift Control F, Shift Command F. I don't know if Mac has Shift, but for Windows it is Shift Control F, and you get this. And now you can reduce on the effect of that particular area and click OK. So the reason that's why I was avoiding this, let me show you guys. When I select this highlight and right click and apply this, you can see we have lost so much detail in the highlight which was around here. So we have to reduce on that effect by clicking Shift Control F and reducing on that particular effect we had applied there. It is the same trick that you use for selecting the highlight on the nose area, because most people, when they reach this step or when they use this method, they tend to uh, apply the effect without reducing on the opacity, and kind of removes the highlight from the nose area. So make sure you, when you apply it on the nose area, the highlight, make sure you reduce on the opacity or the effect of our Gaussian blur. So you're going to click and now make a selection and right click and apply it. So make sure you don't leave any area of the face uh, un untouched, because it is this that is going to show people how much of a retoucher or how much of a serious retoucher you are, or how much of a careless retoucher you are. So we're going to zoom in, and you can see this area right now has some whitish stuff. So if at all, you just get your mixer brush tool and you kind of tend to blend it in really well, you'll get the best results from this area. You try to eliminate it. So let's now make a selection right here and apply. So right now we are making or fine tuning uh, the image, because first of all we use the mixer brush tool and we are kind of making selections. Yeah, we made selections and painted over those areas. Yeah, we actually painted over those areas that don't have smooth or good skin transitions. Let me zoom out so that you guys can see the effect so far, because I don't want to do so much of the talking when you guys are not seeing any results from this image. So you can see this is the before and after. Before, after, you can see how beautiful this image looks. And we are not yet done, because we still have to remove the pimples or the blemishes, and we still have to color grade it and fine tune this portrait. So let's zoom in, and now we are on the nose area. So just make a selection, because this part is dark. So right click and apply the effect. Come to the other side, the left side, and yeah, select, right click and apply the Gaussian blur. So when you come to this particular area, like I had explained before, for this highlight right here, so when you right click and apply the Gaussian blur, you can see we have lost this highlight which was there, and the nose kind of looks different and it doesn't look natural. So we have to reduce on this effect by clicking Shift Control F and reducing or turning down on the opacity of that particular area. So I've gone with 32. You can see this highlight is still there. So we can now also come right here and make a selection. Yeah, make that selection, right click and apply the effect. So apply is it to almost actually the whole portrait, because we wouldn't want people to judge us as being maybe careless retouchers. So remember, this is more of a glam portrait, and yeah, we have to make everyone feel like they should be as beautiful as this model. So we wouldn't want to remain with errors in our image. So when you apply this, you can as well reduce on the effect, Shift Control F to fade it and reducing the effect. So you can see that. Now let's also apply it on the fingers to kind of brighten this dark area. So let's do this. And now you can see the whole image now looks beautiful. So we are going to go in for the next step. Yeah, let's go in for the next step. And before we can go there, let's also apply, because this area was looking really odd, it wasn't looking nice, so let's apply the effect there too. So right now we are done with that. So let's see our progress for this image. So you can see this is the before after. So you have to keep on checking, because there are areas you may not have applied the effect on. So this is the before after. So right now we are going to do the removal of the blemishes from this portrait. And remember, blemishes are part of skin texture. So come and click on the texture layer and get use spot healing tool, or you can as well use your clone stamp tool. I'm going to be showing you guys how the tool work. So make sure it is in its default form. Yeah, because make sure it is a normal, it is normal, and content aware is selected, because that is what I found out works best for me. And make sure sample all layers is not checked. Remember, we are on our texture layer, so we're going to zoom in because we want to be precise with the blemish removal for this image. So make sure your brush is bigger than the blemish you're trying to remove. So just click over the blemish to remove it. So just dab or click over that particular blemish or pimple that you're trying to eliminate from the image. So, and for those who would like to learn about the clone stamp tool or the healing brush tool, because they work the same way, I'm going to show you guys this in a bit. So for the clone stamp tool, make sure it is a normal one. The opacity is 100, the flow 100. Make sure aligned is selected, and make sure current layer is also selected. Yeah. So come and hold down alternate button. So when you hold it down, still make sure it is bigger than the blemish you want to eliminate. Hold down Alt to sample, yeah, or copy from that particular area, from a clean area, copy by holding down and clicking on a clean area and painting over the blemish. So this is how you use the clone stamp tool to remove the blemishes. So for some areas you have to use the healing brush tool, and for the other areas you have to come back and use your clone stamp tool. So let's be quick with this, because I don't want this to be a long one, although it is a complete guide to skin retouching in Photoshop. So let's click over these tiny blemishes, because at the end of the day it is these simple details that people will judge you with and say maybe you're a good retoucher or you're not a good retoucher. So let's zoom in and look for those tiny skin imperfections, and we eliminate them from our image. So let's come to the cheek area, and we dab over these areas. And there are those areas where you feel that it has not done a good job for you. So you'll have to come back and get your clone stamp tool and manually select from a nearby area, hold down Alt to copy from a clean area, and paint over those blemishes. So sometimes the spot healing brush tool is really headache, because it is going to automatically select for you from a particular area, and you may not want it to copy from that area. That's why you need to manually learn how to use the clone stamp tool, because it will be you selecting or sampling from that area, from a clean area. Sorry. So let's do this quickly. I'll get back this, and I'm going to just paint over these tiny blemishes. And yeah, it is these tiny details that people will judge you with. So make sure you take your time with this very step, because it transforms your portrait eventually. So You can now come to the clone sample from this area and just paint over to remove these lines. You can see how beautiful this is getting. And yeah, and if you're not doing any talking, or this, if you're not distracted at all, you can as well do this in less than 15 minutes. So you have to keep on practicing so that you can be good at skin retouching, because you don't get better within just a day. You have to keep on doing practice with your retouching. So right now we are done with removing the blemishes from the image. You can see this is the before after. You can see how beautiful the image has turned out to be. Right now we are going to close this, and now what we're going to do, we're going to do global dodging and banning. So what is global dodging and banning? Global dodging and banning is whereby we enhance the highlights and the shadows of an image. So remember, when you're doing frequency separation, in most cases it kind of flattens the image or removes those beautiful shadows from the image. So we have to uh, bring back those details by using global dodging and banning. So global dodging and banning helps us to enhance the highlights more and the shadows more in an image. So in doing that, we kind of bring back the shape or dimensions to our portrait. So what we're going to do, we're going to be using the curves in Photoshop and a brush tool. So click right here and come to curves. So when you create this, click in the middle and first of all brighten it. So that is fine. Make sure this layer is selected. Control I to hide the effect. So we're going to get the brush and we're going to be revealing the brightness we have hidden right here. So we're going to come back to, before we can come back there, first of all, remember when you're dodging, we dodge the highlights, and when we are burning, we burn the shadows. So we are going to come back and now create a new curves adjustment layer. Click in the middle and this time darken. So remember, when we are burning, we burn the shadows. So we are going to click Control I to hide the effect, and we are going to name this a burn. So that is, we are done doing our dodge and burn layers. So we can put these two in a group by clicking Shift and clicking on the lower one, Control G to group them. So we can name this dodge and burn. So this is our dodge and burn group. So click on your burn layer, and as usual, remember we need something to help us when we are doing the dodging and burning. So come and create a black and white layer. This is going to be like our help layer, and slide this down the red channel. You can see now, you can see where to paint and where not to paint. So turn off your frequency separation. Remember, it kind of flattens the image, so we want to see where the highlights and shadows were initially. So right now, click on your dodge layer right here. Come and select your brush tool, and for the settings, make sure it is a soft brush. Make sure it is a soft brush, and yeah, that is the setting for the brush. And now, right now, come right here and make sure white is on top by clicking and toggling right here, and you can as well reset it by clicking right here. So make sure it is a white brush, and the opacity, make sure you use an opacity of around uh, below 10%, because we didn't want it to be too much, and the flow 100%. So make sure you zoom in, sorry, you increase your brush size by using the right bracket on the keyboard. Make sure you on the dodge layer. So we're going to be enhancing the highlights for this portrait by just painting over that area that we feel should have been with the highlights. So I'll come to the nose and I'm going to paint there. Come below the chin, enhance that. So let me come to the lip area and I'm going to enhance there. So we have a highlight here, so let me enhance that. I think we are done with the dodging, so let's come to the burn, and you're going to enhance these areas too. So let's paint over that area and come to the nose area. Make sure when you're doing this, you don't totally zoom in because we want to do the dodging and burning the way someone is going to be looking at the image. So just paint over every area you feel should have been with a shadow. So click on your frequency separation layer to turn it back on and turn off this black and white layer. You can see this is the before after. You can see the difference it makes to the image. So click on the black and white layer right here and drag it or delete it. Drag it to this trash can icon. So we are done doing the global dodging and burning. So right now the next step is we are going to be color grading this image in Photoshop. So for the color grading, we're going to be using selective color. So come right here, click on selective color, and you can see we have very many colors right here. So initially for skin tones, it is usually the red and the yellow channel, or maybe magenta. So click on the red channel. We are going to add cyans to the image. So when you turn this down, you can see how your image will be. So depending on the look you're trying to go in for, and when you turn this side, you will see how the image will turn. So depending on the look you're going in for still. So and for this tutorial, I'm going to go in for around a cyan of around -9, and I'm going to add yellows to the red by uh, pulling this up. You can see when I put it up, you can see I add yellows. When I turn it down, it adds magentas to the red. So I'm going to turn it to around 9. I think 9 is fine, and we want to enhance more the reds in the blacks in the red. So I'm going to come to the black channel and I'm going to enhance that too. We're going to leave it at around 3, and you can as well come to the yellow channel and turn up the blacks to around 5. I think we are done with this. We are done with the color grading because we don't want our image to really have so much of a difference. So right now what we are going to do, we are now going to do a little bit of eye whitening. I know the eyes are already white, but I want to show you guys how you can do your eye whitening, and maybe let's do a little bit of more color grading on the hair. So just double click right here and come to the black channels. Remember the hair is black, so let's turn this a little bit up to around 1 because it brings or adds a little bit of contrast to our image. So let's add in a little bit of contrast to this image too, the overall image. So click on use legacy and now turn this up a little bit to around 3. Now let's go in for around 2, a contrast of 2. So right now I want to show you guys what I do for the eye whitening. So I'm going to create a stamp visible layer right here on top of this to create each and everything, and by clicking shift alt control E on the keyboard to create that stamp visible layer, and click control or command J to duplicate that layer. Come to filter, camera raw filter, and in camera raw filter I am going to be using the adjustment brush. So you can also click K on the keyboard to select this right here. So remember, if at all maybe you have red eyes, or the eyes are yellowish, or maybe the teeth are even yellow, this is what you have to do to whiten them. So make sure your brush is selected right here, and the temperature, make sure it is towards your negatives because we are going to be removing the yellowish or the yellowness from the eyes or the teeth. And make sure your tint is at 69, the highlight is at 5, the white is at 5, and make sure the saturation is at -70. Remember, we are going to be removing color from the particular whites. Remember, teeth are meant to be white, and this white area of the eye is supposed to be white too. So let's get our zoom tool right here. Left click and hold down, and drag according to the direction of the area you're trying to select to zoom in. So get your adjustment brush and now paint over the white area of the eye to whiten it. So just paint over only and only the white area. Make sure you desist from painting the areas of the skin. Remember, this brush is desaturated to make that particular area black and white or gray in color if at all you paint over or accidentally paint over the other area. So click on your move or your hand tool and get your zoom tool again. So you can as well whiten the teeth even more. So I'm just showing you this step so that the next time your images have maybe yellow teeth or anything, you have a way of dealing with that. So I think we are done with the eye and teeth whitening. So let's click OK. Let me show you guys the difference it has made. You can see this is the before, after. And if at all you feel the eyes are too white, just come, click here and reduce on the opacity. So this tutorial has been about an ultimate skin retouching tutorial in Photoshop, and it has been a complete skin retouching tutorial in Photoshop using frequency separation. And if at all you love this tutorial, don't forget to like this video and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And let me show you guys what we did initially for this particular image. I'm going to turn this off. So this was our original image, and we did frequency separation using a Mr. Brush tool and the lasso tool. Then we did global dodging and burning to add shape or dimension to this image. You can see the difference it made. So we also came and did color grading for the images. You can see a before, after, and we added a little bit of contrast to this image, and we created a stamp visible layer by clicking Shift Alt Control E on the keyboard. And we also did the eye and teeth whitening in Camera Raw. So this tutorial has been about frequency separation, and if at all you love this tutorial, don't forget to like this video, drop a comment in the comment section if at all you find it really helpful for you guys. And let me group each and everything. Ctrl G to group it. You can see this is before, after. You can see how beautiful the image has turned out to be with just using frequency separation in Photoshop. So I hope you guys have loved this tutorial, and I'm Ronix from Ronix Photography. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet another retouching tutorial on this channel, and stay blessed.